sit. Welcome to the Folk School on Willow Creek, featuring University Distinguished Professor Tom Easern, singing and telling stories from the Salon on Willow Creek.
I need a bed for the night, boys, and my horses need hay. I've been riding that grove line on the hot-dish highway. Tom Hyde is my name, an old bachelor I am. You'll find me out west in the county of fame. You'll find me out west on an elegant plain, starving to death on my government claim. But hurrah for Greer County, the land of the free, the land of the bedbug, grasshopper, and flea. I'll sing of its praises and tell of its fame, while starving to death on a government claim. Well, that's pretty good. From the Greer County Bachelor, Tom Hyde, except it's all wrong, I think. I think it is, yeah. Tom Hyde is my name, an old bachelor I am. What we're looking at here is a localization of a song about 30 years older than the text I'm singing. I was singing from John Lumak's Cowboy Songs and Other Frontier Ballads. The ballad he records there, Greer County. It's the one accredited then to someone named Tom Hyde. Well, who the heck is Tom Hyde? I can kind of tell you that, actually. Tom Hyde. Tom Hyde was a bona fide settler in Greer County, Oklahoma. And he seemed to claim credit for this ballad. Well, in the first place, it's a ballad that goes back at least to Lane County, Kansas in the 1870s. I'm some of the data on this is a little untrustworthy. I'm going to start doing the digging myself in western Kansas on the origins of the ballad there. But it travels all over the plains, like to Emmons County, North Dakota, there's a version. And various places in Kansas, Nebraska, and so on. But Thomas Hyde claims to have written the ballad, and what written means, what author means, it's always a little bit fuzzy here. But he claims credit for the Lane County Bachelor. Well, a bona fide settler. He was a post office, or a postmaster. He was appointed to the post office in Greer County in 1904. He proved up a homestead in 1907. And he was evidently a person of some standing, prominent in the Masonic order, and a man about town in Mangum, Oklahoma, such as that town was at the time, but he didn't exactly make good. He wound up at his place being sold off from under him in 1911, it looks like. Yeah, so he wasn't a terribly successful homesteader. He was just kind of well known, and somehow he became credited for the Lane County, the Greer County Bachelor by John Lomax, the great songcatcher. Now the problem is I've got same ballad basically showing up on the heading Greer County in the Kingfisher Daily Star. For those of you in Oklahoma, you know where I'm talking about. The 6th of July of 1906, well before Hyde made any claim to it and Lomax recorded it. And it's a little bit better text, to tell the truth. Now here's the fun part of it. Composed and sung, this text says, by Lon Thomas of Mangum, Oklahoma. Same town as this guy Hyde, right? But he's got an earlier text of it. And we'll sing this one here in a minute. Okay, I really like this one, however, because as I look in the background of this fellow Lon Thomas, he was a farm worker who got in a little trouble, grand larceny, for stealing several bales of cotton there up around Hobart, Oklahoma. Him and an accomplice. And then when they got out, they did it again. They stole another batch of cotton. Well, not content with that here, before he's done, He's up for grand larceny. What's the charge here? Yeah, he and his accomplice stole 2 pigs that evidently had been butchered and were hanging, and they made off with the carcasses of it. And so he lands up, and I've got here his the court record of his appeal. Oh yeah, Criminal Court of Appeals, State of Oklahoma, 1910-11, Lon Thomas versus the state. Too bad they upheld his conviction for grand larceny, and I don't know what happened to him after that. But what I really like is, as best we can tell, we can credit the Greer County Bachelor to a felonious thief in southwestern Oklahoma, around Mangum there. So now you want to hear his ballad, I hope. So let's get it up here. This is the Greer County. He just calls it Greer County. Most people who later picked up the song, like Carl Sandburg, they referred to it as the Greer County Bachelor. And here we go. Now I am an old bachelor, Lon Thomas my name. You'll find me out west on an elegant claim. You'll find me out west in a country of fame. I'm a starving to death on a government claim. Then I ride for Greer County, the land of the free, the home of the grasshopper, bedbug and flea. I'll sing of its praises and tell of its fame, while starving to death on a government claim. My house, it is built on the national soil. The walls are erected according to oil. The roof has no pitch, but it's level and plain. And I always get wet when it happens to rain. But I ride for Greer County, the land of the free, the home of the grasshopper, bedbug and flea. We sing of its praises, we tell of its fame, while starving to death on a government claim. Now that last stanza, you pick up the reason why we're doing this song this week. This week is the anniversary of the date when President Abraham Lincoln in 1862 signed the Homestead Act. So my house, it is built of the national soil, he sings. Yeah. How happy I am when I crawl into bed and a rattlesnake rattles a tune in my head, and a gay little centipede, stranger to fear, crawls over my pillow and into my ear. Then I ride for Greer County, where the blizzards arise, where there is never sun, the sleet never dies, the winds never cease, but will always remain to blow the light out on a government claim. Now, all you claim holders, I hope you will stay. Chew your hardtack till you're toothless and gray. But as for me, I'll no longer remain and starve like a dog on a government claim. Farewell to Greer County, farewell to the west. I'm going back south to the girl I love best. I'm going back to Texas and marry a wife, and I'll quit this hard living the rest of my life. That's the Greer County Bachelor. There are some odd things about that. It clearly came to Greer County from some point north, because Greer County is really not known for blizzards, where the blizzards arise. However, it is known for fleas and insects. Yay. You bet. Speaking of insects, now, signs of the times, we're very in touch with the seasons here at the Willow Creek Folk School.
Yes.
All the rest of us in the house have had ticks here, Dr. Kelly. What about you?
I have had ticks.
Oh, you're up there. Okay.
I did set the alarm a while back. I told you. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I have a tick.
So it is tick season, yes.
Yes.
Tick season, but the native plum are in bloom. And as it gets still in the evening, and it's dead still out there right now, oh, the aroma just fills the front of the property.
It really does.
Isn't that great, the native plum?
I just took Willa out for a walk before the program, and it was a really heavenly scented walk.
As of, by Sunday, I'll cut you a bouquet of lilacs from the side hedge here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it's tick season. We also had 2 days of buffalo gnats, but all is forgiven. And a few ticks we can pick ticks. Things are in bloom, and oh my word, the birds right now.
Yes.
The color around this place. If you've been looking out our windows of the Willow Creek Folk School over the months here, then we're a little starved for color by this time of year. And now, of course, the finches. What was it? I counted 17 by your window.
17 by the front window.
Yeah, and just equal number by my window and back.
Yeah.
Grosbeaks, rose-breasted grosbeaks, and warblers of various kinds, black and white warblers and others, and the doves have returned. And the various woodpeckers, redhead woodpecker yesterday.
Did you say the Oriole?
And the orioles, yeah. I just gave him another orange out there. Yeah. Yeah. So we're feeling, a little more.
It kind of perks you up when
you feel more lively.
Like
yeah.
This.
Well, that's a good segue to our next number here for a minute, lively, or by way of irony. Do you have any other news you need to bring up here yet?
Well, I can talk about the press, but mostly what we're working on right now is behind the scenes stuff. So we had recent publications, we just finished up our semester, and now I'm onboarding a new intern who will work with us this summer and making assignments for the summer, working on everybody's schedule so people can take their breaks and have a little bit of vacation when they're ready. And then we have to do inventory in June. So we have to count every single book that we have.
Excuse me here, Dr. Kelly. Has anybody told you you're not under contract right now?
Don't talk about that.
Oh, okay.
We're not supposed to talk about that. Yeah, from May 16th until July 15th, I'm off.
Then just
Actually, a press doesn't just stop. So we have things that we're doing.
Yeah.
Including mapping out a new publication schedule for books coming up in the fall and next spring.
I know there's a bunch in the pipeline and some good titles there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Ballad Factory keeps rolling here. Last week I did a fine text of the Cowboy's Lament. And it was hearkening back to the 1870s version by this fellow Maynard that our partner Jim Hoy found to be the original author of the Cowboy's Lament. As I walked out by Tom Sherman's barroom, the cowboy wrapped in white linen, that whole thing, right? And then something happens. Texas tends to steal ballads. There's just like this great sucking sound from Texas, and they're sucking up the ballads from North Dakota and Kansas and every place else, including the Cowboy's Lament. So somehow, and nobody figured out just how, it morphed from, as I walked out in Tom Sherman's barroom in Dodge City, Kansas, it became, by the time people like Lomax, the ballad catcher, and others began to deal with the song of the 20th century, it was as I walked out in the streets of Laredo. Now, I was probably 16 years of old age when a carload of us got in a car from Ellenwood, Kansas, and drove down to Wichita for a Buck Owens concert. We're dating ourselves now, aren't we? But we were very much taken with the Bakersfield sound and Buck Owens, and the way we went. And of course, none of us had dates, but it was a great show anyway. But you know who stole the show? Doyle Hawley, Buck Owens' sideman and bass player, but also a resonant bass singer. When he came to center stage and broke into the Cowboy's Lament, and we were sitting there thinking, "Oh wow, folk songs are not only cool, they can really, they got real power." Yeah. The Cowboy's Lament. As I walked out in the streets of Laredo, he was singing that night. And that's the way we thought it was until later discoveries found the Kansas origin of the song. But then how did it get scooped up by Texas? I began to investigate this. And I thought I had it nailed. Oh, it looked like 1914. Oh, 1914. Suddenly the song starts appearing in Eastern newspapers all over the place. as I walked out in the streets of Laredo. What's up with that? Well, the Mexican border, very much on the minds of Americans at that time. Mexican revolutionaries raiding across the river, American troops being sent to patrol the Rio Grande, and streets of Laredo, it became a popular song in the eastern United States. Perhaps there were troops that were singing it or sending it home. I haven't picked that up, but I know there's a connection there around 1914. I thought, well, there it is. That's when this thing really took off as Streets of Laredo. Well, then, serendipitously, here came the Casper text. Casper, Wyoming. And I reading it in a paper, the Casper Star-Tribune in 1929, but it's like an anniversary issue hailing back 30 years to 1899. And a number of ballads are this way, including Home on the Range. We don't have the original text as it was at the time, but later a newspaper publishes and they say, we're copying it from our earlier publication. And this is then copying from 30 years ago, 1899, and there it is, the Cowboy's Lament, as I walked out in the streets of Laredo. Now this is fairly lengthy, but we're going to sing it because this is a really, really significant text. And in the middle, when I teach, I've been teaching about this ballad in schools, I talk about compression. All right, here's a song where we don't have very good details. We've got these images, white linen, red roses, and that sort of stuff. But where's the narrative line? Where's the story? And I sometimes assign school kids to write an obituary for the dying cowboy, and that's always kind of fun. And they give him a name, because he's got no name in the ballad. Well, in this text, we find out what happened to the guy. So here it is, the streets of Laredo, as it circulated evidently in Wyoming in 1899. As I walked out in the streets of Laredo, as I walked out in Laredo one day, I spied a poor cowboy wrapped up in white linen, as cold as the clay. Oh, beat the drum slowly, play the fife lowly, play the dead march as I'm carried along. Take me to Green Valley, there lay the sod o'er me, for I'm a young cowboy and I know I've been wrong. I can see by your outfit that you are a cowboy. These words you say, the boldly step by. Come sit down beside me and hear my sad story. I'm shot in the breast and I know I will die. Let 16 gamblers handle my coffin. Let 16 cowboys come sing me a song. Take me to the graveyard and lay the sod o'er me, for I'm a young cowboy and I know I've done wrong. It was down at Tom Sherman. We sat playing poker. Said that I cheated. I said 'twas a lie. It made me so angry. I rose up and struck him. And he shot me right here, and I know I shall die. My friends and relations, they live in the nation, and they know not where their boy is gone. He first came to Texas and hired the news to my sister so dear. But not a word of this place shall you mention. When a crowd gathers round you, my story to hear, then beat the drum slowly and play the fife slowly, beat the dead march as I'm carried along. We all love our cowboys, so young, so handsome. We all love our cowboys, although they've done wrong. Well, now there is another more dear than a sister who shall bitterly weep when she hears I am gone. But there is another who in her affection, for I'm a young cowboy and they say I've been wrong. But once in the saddle I used to go dashing. Once in the saddle I used to go gay. First to the roadhouse and then to the card house. Got shot in the breast and I'm dying today. Then swing the rope slowly and rattle the spurs lowly and give a wild whoop as I'm carried along. And in the grave throw me, roll the sod o'er me, for I'm a young cowboy and I know I've done wrong. Go bring me a drink, just a cup of cold water, to cool my parched lips, the cowboy said. Before I returned, his spirit had left him, gone to its giver, and the cowboy was dead. So we beat the drum slowly and played the fife slowly, bitterly wept as we bore him along. For your lookout comrade, brave, young and handsome, we all loved our comrade, although he done wrong. Whew. That always gets me a little bit.
Well, it got a bunch of people on here too. You were getting lots of sad emojis.
Oh. And this text in particular, because it's got that sequence, you know. He said that I cheated. I told him it was a lie, you know, and he shot me. Now, there are near contemporary sources who credit this narrative toward an incident when this real character, Tom Sherman, who ran bar rooms in both Great Bend, Kansas and Dodge City, Kansas, when he shot a man in a car dispute in the saloon. The fellow staggered out the door, fell in the street, and then in a well-known incident, Sherman came out and shot him once more in the head. Now we're back to Frank Maynard. Was he on the scene that day when that particular cowboy was shot by the barkeeper? What was he thinking? You know, cowboys, a bunch of them, they're kind of, they're kids, you know, they might get into trouble now and then, but they're mostly young men. And Sherman's a hardened old character who'd lived through the days of the buffalo skinning and the buffalo hunter era in Dodge City already. And those guys are stone cold killers for sure. And he shoots this guy down. And you got a bunch of rather callow cowboys, really. I mean, they're tough from the trail, but they're not tough to look down the muzzle of a six-shooter. And bam, here's cold-blooded murder right in front of him. And Sherman and a group of other people, they actually were vigilantes. They were the law in Dodge City. And so it puts a whole different slant on this of what was the position of the cowboys in these towns. We think of them, oh, they're shooting the town, not raising hell. I'm imagining Frank Maynard and his friends come into town for a little relaxation from the herd, left the herd out there, and there are a couple guys they left behind, and this happens. What? My word. Now, I've got a source that seems to indicate, it intimates that he talked directly to the fellow who shot the dying cowboy of the Ballad. Now, I've got to go back and see now if I can string all those things together in a line. But I suspect it was that incident, that infamous incident with Tom Sherman's cold-blooded murder, that led to this Ballad, and that I may find an eyewitness yet. Oh, well, okay. While looking this one up, by the way, what do I find here as I'm looking up an article about Tom Sherman and his misdeeds? An address, it says, to the hunters after the 90-day scout by Vox Buffalo Rem. Well, I have just enough high school Latin to know what that means is the voice of the buffalo matter, the voice of the buffalo incident or affair. And I know that this is written, it's September of 1877, and it's posted to the Dodge City Times from Old Reynolds, it's sometimes called, also known as Rath City, famous buffalo hide trader Charles Rath. And I know that at this time, these guys are just back from a freelance, irregular military expedition pursuing Comanches across the Southern Plains, because they didn't think the army was protecting them adequately, so they formed their own force, well-armed force. They really didn't catch up with any Indians, but they returned, with a fair bit of swagger yet. How many stanzas did I tell you this was?
I don't remember.
I think it was 44. So I'll be spending some time studying this Buffalo Ballad. The merchant counts over his hard-earned gains. The lawyer looks out for his fee. But the life that the hunter doth lead on the plains is the life which is dearest to me. How often in my boyhood I wished that the breeze would waft me in some place of rest, away from the cities, away from the seas, and into the heart of the West. It sounds pretty good so far, right?
Yes.
It goes downhill from there. Yeah. Well, this is another. I mean, this is right up there with the Cattle King's Prayer and Uncle Sam's Cow and other discoveries that unknown to the present that we've managed to turn up with the Willow Creek folks. Oh, have any good friends on the chat line tonight, Dr. K?
You do. Taylor Broberry says hello. He's getting ready to go to the Driftless and do some writing and fly fishing.
Where's he going?
The Driftless? Isn't that a great name for a region? The Driftless.
I don't know the region. Tell him and tell us where he's talking about.
I think it's in Iowa. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly where it is. Taylor can tell us. I just think it sounds cool. And it looks like we have people who are in at least 5 different states watching in tonight. So I see Utah, Pennsylvania, Kansas, Minnesota, and North Dakota, of course.
We'll have to tell Bill Carr to drop in from Greece here one of these weeks or so, huh? There's a piece of paper I was looking for. Everybody's behaving themselves, though.
They are, but you said something I wanted to ask you about. You were saying a ballad was written, and then you said written, this is kind of fuzzy, I'm not sure about it. You're not talking about AI, are you?
No, I'm talking about folk intelligence, not artificial intelligence, the real thing. But they often are a little bit fuzzy about what it meant to be the author of a ballad, or to claim, to put their name on it, and what exactly that meant.
Okay.
Yeah. And at some point I'm going to write about this, in the folk culture of the Great Plains, late 19th century, early 20th century. What is their sense of authorship? And to what extent, what is their sense that these ballads belong to all of us? But then somebody grabs it and puts his name on it.
Uh-huh.
But seldom is it a copyright involved. No.
Well, Taylor replies, we all need to get there, but it's, he said it's what the Midwest used to look like. It's unglaciated. So it's southeast Minnesota, northeast Iowa, southwest Wisconsin, and northwest Illinois. The driftless.
We'll look it up.
I can only imagine it.
We'll look it up afterward.
Okay.
That's east of our accustomed range.
Yeah.
Why'd I put this up? Because we're talking about all the things that are happening in seasons right now. Of course, we're starting to pot a few geraniums, which will grow up bushy outside, and then we'll trim them back and bring them in for the winter and try to keep a little color in the house. Did I say winter? Oh, excuse me. But the other thing that happened, I saw this on the shelf just before I came up here to start. Gopher Tales for Papa, a famous, I guess you'd call this young adult literature by Erling Rolfsrud. And you can't see his picture very well, but it's a kid on there. He's got a whole bunch of gopher tails in a bundle in his hand. And what the story is, he's a preacher's kid, and they're trying to buy a new organ for the country church, and they're taking up meager donations. It's not going very well, and he decides to help out. He's been killing, this is what they did a century and more ago across the northern plains, flicker-tailed gophers, which are kind of scarce now, always had a county bounty on them. And you kill these gophers by various means, which we won't get into tonight, and then turn in the tails to the county commission, and you get so much per tail. Well, the lad began to feel so sorry for his father and not trying to raise funds for the organ that he brought in all his gopher tails, and instead of turning them in at the courthouse, he put them in the collection plate in church. And that's the key scene in this little youth novel. Now, what happens is here in North Dakota, older people, you start talking to them about gophers, when flickertails were a terrific pest and kids were running around killing them for the bounties, they'll all tell you this story. People used to put those gopher tails in the collection plate. You know that? It's all because Erling Rolfsrud put it in the book, putting gopher tails in the collection plate. I'd like to see it happen sometime, but I think it only happened in the book. Now, if somebody can prove to me different, I'm happy to be disproven on that. I'd like to know the place and name. Well, there's a lot to celebrate. Not only the Homestead Act this week, if you celebrate homesteading. You can tell from the ballads it's a little bit ambivalent at times. But if you're Norwegian, you're really celebrating. I mean, just whooping it up. Crazy stuff. They go topless. That is, they take the top bread off sandwiches, And, yeah. Syttende Mai was this week, 17th of May, Norwegian Constitution Day, celebrating the final liberation of the Norwegians from the tyrannous Swedes. And congratulations to one of the world's great Western democracies, Norway. I'm not very good at singing Norwegian. I've tried it now and then. And unfortunately, we've lost our dear friend, Professor Helgeland, who used to coach me through an occasional Norwegian stanza. But the Minnesota scholar, Theodore Blagan, historian and a collaborator, have put together a great book of Norwegian immigrant songs. Many of them, well, they're in effect they're oriented around the concept of the America letter. And all the immigrant groups have this. America brief, America brev, the America letter. It's like a literary genre. Young fellow goes to America, he's making good, and he writes home. I found work. Then he tries to get a sweetheart to come over. Or vice versa, She went over with the family, and she tries to get her sweetheart to come over. America letters. It's a standard fixture of documentation of the immigrant experience. And that's really what this song is around. And Blagan and Rude have put it into their book of Norwegian immigrant songs. They've translated it into English. Now, the problem is these guys aren't singers, and so they don't present us with a singable text. So what I've done is I've taken Blagan's text and made it singable. So it'll scan. They don't provide a tune for it either. What am I going to do about that? Well, what would be something that will work? Great composers, whether it's Virgil Thompson here in the States, or Dvorak, or Edvard Grieg, they lift tunes from the folk domain, and they work them into art songs or symphonic composition. And Grieg does that frequently. So what I did was I stole it back. I took Solveig's song from Grieg and rewilded it to be a tune to the text that I got from Blagan. That make sense? And it's about to happen here.
Okay.
Okay, so if there were any tears shed over the dying cowboy,
There were.
hang on to your hankies. Here.
Hmm.
This is tough. Because there's an innate tragedy in the diaspora of the Norwegians, of the Scots, of the Irish, of all these groups that poured out of their native lands to America in the late 19th century. We like to say, oh, they came for the opportunity, but to the immigrant generation, there was a heartache that never went away. A letter has come from America, from the son who's gone away. His hopes were so high that he could not be restrained, and his parents could only pray. But the farmer addressed in the letter could not read. He had never attended a school. His hands, they were hardened and hurting for the land. It was hard and the sea was cruel. They send for a young fellow living up the coast who can read what the sun has said. They pour him a drink and they listen closely as the American letter is read. While the old man attends to every single word, his wife sits still and spins. Her wheel going round like the notions in her head. In her heart a prayer begins. Thanks be to God for the passage o'er the sea. He is safe in America's strand. My worst fears are rest. God preserve our boy still as a stranger in a strange land. But the father he broods, for there are no written words that will ever his fears allay. The bitterness wells for the promises and lies that have stolen his son away. America from the sun who's gone away. His hopes were so high that he could not be restrained, and his parents could only pray. Oh, sons of the north, said ye not, for live contented and quietly. Stay home with your kin, raise up children of the land, and return to the soil and sea. Oh, sons of the north, said ye not, for live contented and quietly. Stay home with your kin, raise up children of the land, and return to the soil and sea. Yeah, they do leave on you, don't they?
Goodness.
We've got a lot of calendar to deal with right now. Ticks, peonies, about to bust out, ballads, Syttende Mai, and Memorial Day coming up. And let's talk about that in just a moment, because we're about to take a week off of the Willow Creek Folk School again, because we're doing family things. You know, those kids, they do leave on you, and you have to go to them. And so we're flying to DFW here come next week, and a few days on family affairs with some joyful events. Isn't it good that we have, we just have joyful events lined up like dominoes, it seems like, often with our trap line of family. I'm mixing my metaphors, excuse me, with our trap line of family across Oklahoma and Texas.
We've got a granddaughter graduating high school next week.
Yeah.
And another granddaughter celebrating with a baby shower. And our first great grandbaby is on his way.
We got to get that one first granddaughter to proper college, right? We'll jawbone her on that, and then we got to get this great grandbaby named.
We're doing our best to help.
I don't know why people don't appreciate this. Well, anyway, we'll take next week off. We'll be back 2 weeks from tonight, right here, I believe. Yeah.
Yep, June 2nd.
June 2nd.
Yeah.
In the meantime, tomorrow morning, do you remember we're leaving at 6:30 tomorrow morning?
I do remember.
And if any of our friends in Ellendale are out there, we'll see you tomorrow at the old Opera House and around town and environs there, doing some arts things.
Yeah, arts and history.
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing exactly there, but
I'm driving.
They said, come, we're coming, yeah. Yeah, and it's always a pleasure seeing our friends in Ellendale. And most any other prairie town, which brings me to the final ballad of the evening, which is called Prairie Town. It's fairly long. I think first time I sang it in 2002, I looked at my watch. I said, oh, that was 7 minutes. And look, people are still sitting here. And it was one that had been percolating for a while. And then we were down there to Ellenwood. And you probably remember it was a Memorial Day, and my mother got a terrific kick out of introducing you to my high school girlfriend, which was just hilarious to her for some reason. And then here, but there were, of course, the Memorial Day observances in the cemetery that day. And here came Cousin John in dress whites, Stan. Marlon and Stan are listening there. You may remember this day when John was just back from his second tour in the Eastern Mediterranean while his wife had brain cancer at home. And I'd been looking for one more verse to finish it, and I didn't have a sense of what it was, and then I suddenly knew what it was. And you'll see it in here. This is Prairie Town. Does your own Prairie Town look exactly like this? Maybe not. This is an aspirational song. On a good day, this is what we should try to look like, all right? Let's work on that over the the coming years. And that would be a good Memorial Day observance indeed. Well, the windows all are dark, but inside there's a glow. Trucks pull up and idle and they let the heaters blow. At last the neon lights and the bolt clicks in the door. It's cold outside. At the Cynic's Coffee Clutch, that's where the day begins. Caramel rolls and coffee and confessing all our sin. The men sit on the left, the women on the right. Barbed wire between, it's a prairie town. In the morning, prairie town doesn't change much sun to sun. We start out here in the blue-gray morning. Heaven knows where we'll be when day is done. Heaven knows where we'll be when day is done. Well, it's not the kind of place where you order a Chardonnay. The beers are all domestic and the whiskey's just okay. But we got 7 kinds of schnapps, trying to do one every day. And that's our bar. We got the kind of bar that you can take your granny to find some conversation and some pinochle too. Come Saturday night when you're putting away the brew, don't drive your car. It's a prairie town. In the morning, and the publican is sweeping out the bar. He sweeps the lights with the trash across the threshold. Does he see that there's a shining morning star? Does he see that there's a shining morning star? Well, it used to be on Sunday, men put on their Sunday suits. The women all wore hats. Now it's jeans and boots. The bankers look like farmers. You can't put on any airs in a prairie town. In the third pew from the back, there's a face we haven't seen since she left for the city with her sweetheart and a dream. Dreams and love went south. She'd been living hand to mouth, but now she's home in a prairie town. In the morning, prairie town is a place where you can pray. Give me your tired, your poor, and your wounded. You can rest for a while or you can stay. Or you can stay. Now it's funny and it's not when those old men hit the street. They hold beer bellies in there, marching heavy on their feet. This Monday every May, old soldiers have their day. When the lilacs bloom, we all get in our cars, drive up the gravel road to a graveyard where just yesterday the weeds and grass were mowed. The speeches may be corny, but the prayers are from the heart, and the grass is green. It's a prairie town. In the morning, heads are bowed, bugles play, grown men cry. Whoever knew there were heroes among us, true and blue as the fairest prairie sky. True and blue as the fairest prairie sky. You see those taillights in the snow? Well, that's a caravan of cars following our kids, who all the papers say are stars. Well, the stars aren't out tonight. It's a whirlwind of white. Stay on the road. At last we're safe and warm, and old town is here because the state beat. It's a big deal, and at last this is our year. We know the kids can't hear, but we all stand up and cheer, 'cause this place is big, and it's a prairie town. In the morning, hardcore heroes are sleeping late today. We let them sleep in the blue-gray morning. Heaven knows where they'll be at end of day. Heaven knows where they'll be at end of day. It's a prairie town. Got the kind of bar that you can take your granny to. You find some conversation and some pinochle too. Prairie town in the morning. Can't you see that morning star? Taillights in the snow. Well, that's a caravan of cars. We're following our kids. All the papers say are stars. 'Cause the state bee is a big deal, and at last this is our year. So we all stand up and cheer. Discouraging word, and the sky are not cloudy, are not cloudy all day. No, the skies are not cloudy all day. Dr. Kelly.
We now conclude today's edition of the Folk School on Willow Creek. We invite you to join us again June 2nd, 8 p.m. Central Time for more songs and stories.
Okay.
Just as you were getting ready to go into the riff for that, this says done, and it says it stopped, but people were still shooting up hearts and stuff.
I don't know.
So I don't know. It says you lost the connection.
Well, we'll see. Oh.
Just sending the parts.
Okay, did it work?
It did. It did.
Tearjerker, huh?
Mm-hmm. So when you started singing Prairie Town, the fellow in Louisiana, Rojo, said, I think I remember him playing that song in 2008. I said, yes, you do.
Well, of course, I was thinking about Taylor Rory while I was singing it.
Oh.
But that's not how he sees his Prairie Town, you
I always think of Danny and his friends playing basketball and when we went to San Antonio.
People bring different things to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay, I'm gonna do some things at my desk.
Oh,
As soon
yeah.
as you give me my phone back. And then going to bed early.
We better get some sleep.
And this is saying you're still alive. Oh, and Jody Neckel just said, you're still alive. So I don't know what's happening here.
No, I don't know, but we can probably squash it like a tick.
Well, we'll see.
Switch your phone off.
Just turn it off.
Get the Mevo shut off maybe here too.